Yes, my name is Kennedy McDaniel. I'm an artist and zine maker. I'm a founding member of the zine making collective, Blackberry Zine Collective. And I also have my own zine making practice called Black Zine.
I love how you call it a practice. Is that how people think of it?
It's a practice, it's a medium, it's an art form, it's a meditation. I would say seed making can serve so many purposes that I think every creator has their own kind of definition on how they call it. But just being in community and working with high school students was my interest, especially people who are from Baltimore, the same city that I am from and grew up in. I did come across zines as a practice, and I was like, oh, this could be a cool way to kind of combine our work together. Instagram, TikTok, all of these different pieces of social media or spaces on the internet that were meant to connect us and increase engagement across the world. These have also been co opted in many ways. There's a lot of disinformation and misinformation. There's a lot of censorship and suppression of information. There are also even safety elements, such as do I want to be posting about a protest, knowing that my face may be identified, my face may be connected to my Instagram. The cops may open my phone using my face ID and now see all of this information online and now all of a sudden we're being tracked. And that wasn't necessarily always there when we first started thinking of hashtag activism and how we can
Yeah. Or
connect
even
with
now that I
people.
think of going back to the 90s, you one of the things that was intriguing is people when they moved zines and zine culture, and I think in a way became blogging culture. It's sort of there's a through line there. It's still you didn't feel like you were at the mercy of the algorithm. You were at the mercy, right? Like the sort of weight and impact and the infrastructure of the business of social media wasn't quite what it is today.
Right, right. I think it was very person to person. There was no one else involved. Now there's an algorithm involved. There are many people behind an algorithm, right, that also have their own intentions and motivations and a way that they want to shape the world. And all of that adds into, okay, now my communication is being disrupted, it's being censored, it's being blocked from getting to who I want it to reach. And when I think of zine making, there's just this level of freedom from start to finish. Thinking of an idea, sharing an idea, you do the research the way you want to, you reach out to who you find interesting and the voices you feel are important to document. You decide how you want to distribute it and who you want to share it with. There's just a level of freedom and independence at every step of the process.
Do you think there's a rise in zines also because people feel a little bit scared or people feel like it's safer politically?
I think there are a few different reasons for the rise in zine making, and I definitely think that is one of them. But I think, yeah, there's so many reasons. I guess I would say more so what feels important in this moment is community and the people that you have that are directly around you, the proximity.
Which
Um,
is different than the megaphone, right? It's different
exactly.
from hashtag activism, what you're saying. Like you keep
Yes.
coming back to this idea of like safety and community. And I just sort of I hear you cocooning, which is sort of interesting coming from your generation.
I would say not cocooning, I would say rooting, getting
Okay.
deeper in where we are, connecting with each other underground. You're not always going to see like this big fanfare. Also, knowing when it comes to, again, the things that we share on social media, there is this level of, for example, I've seen people post different fundraisers for feeding people in Palestine, and they're having a lot of challenges in part because people are responding and sending funds, but they're saying it right in the tagline for Palestine, for Gaza, and it's like, whoa, this is about to get blocked immediately, and these funds aren't going to go anywhere. And that's because you see something on social media, maybe you rush to action, you're not thinking it through, you're not in community necessarily. And then things kind of can fall apart when they're so broad. Versus if I'm with in my community, if I hand you a zine and you read it, there's something more intimate, there's something more connective, there's something that puts us all in community and in space with one another. And that deeper connection, I think, is where a lot of real power can be built.
We're starting to see big brands borrow the aesthetics, for lack of a better term, of zines. There was a collaboration between the music site Pitchfork and Turnstile, Gucci, the like most mass label ever, and is prone to a little reaching into the culture. Dating apps. There's like a visual element that I thought was like just a 90s thing that now I'm actually seeing in the context of this, of it is the imagery from zine culture. And what's the difference between that, right? And what you're doing? Or let me take that back. What's the difference between a zine and like a product like that, right? Something that looks like it.
Yes. And one shout out to Turnstile, also Baltimore Love. I think I will say I would not necessarily say that that is a zine when you have a big backer behind it, like Pitchfork. That is now a magazine. But I think, they are also a part of the subculture too. So that lends some
But who's
authenticity to
getting
it,
what out
right?
of it, right? When there's a collab like that, is it Pitchfork who benefits? Is it Turnstile? You know what I mean? It's kind of borrowing the shine.
Yeah, and I'll say beyond the turnstile piece, but just in a broader sense, um, I think that corporations always take whatever is hip or cool, whatever they can use to make more money, they will co-opt that, whatever that is. So that can be a bit frustrating as someone who authentically like makes zines from their heart and from their lived experience. And I'm not in it for the money. There are who is making zines, who is in it to, even live off of. Like this is not something that it's gonna pay your bills or
Yeah.
put food on the table by any means. And so I think larger groups, larger, something like Pitchfork, or I've seen other things too where it's like, okay, like you have a lot of backing behind this. This is being very professionally printed and
Wait,
distributed across
are you
the
saying there are
country.
zine industry plants? You think there's some people who look a little too polished? I hear what you're saying.
And it's the bigger names when it's like a magazine, but then they'll do a smaller zine that's a limited edition of your magazine. That's not necessarily a zine when it's, from a national, name. Um, but of course, I don't want to gatekeep too much on the zines either.
That is the most Gen Z thing you've said, which is truly saying something. But
Like,
you need to say it with your whole chest. You're like, some of y'all out here are not real zine people.
Everyone should make zines besides corporations and billionaires. That would be my statement on the matter. I don't really
Fair.
want to hear their personal thoughts or insights. That's of no interest to me.
Is there also something about the whole, you mentioned holding something in your hand. And it occurs to me that, right now we're in an era where very few of us can like own, so to speak. Like our music, in a way, we're like renting or leasing when it comes to streaming. If you use an e-reader, that's a book that could be yanked from your device. Like, I don't know. It feels like maybe this obsession that Gen Z has with like vinyl or whatever is about being able to hold something and to own something.
Yes, there.
And you can tell me I'm wrong.
No.
Like, do you feel like you own things?
Oh,
I
don't
feel like
own
I used
anything.
to.
I don't own
Yeah.
the house that I'm in. I don't own the music that I listen to. I don't own a car. I don't own anything in this economy. So I think being able to hold materials, physical objects, especially just ephemera that is meaningful. Like there's a reason why your family has stacks and stacks of these old scrapbooks and you open them up and you can just go through them. And that is, not just a visual experience, but a spiritual and a physical one too. And I think that there's something really important about being able to hold this in your hand, to hold your own history, to hold things that feel meaningful to you, to hold things that have spoken to you. Um, I get a very different feeling, I think, reading a poem that I see online versus I got an amazing like zine work that like you open an envelope and you take out this folded piece of paper and you unfold the paper and you read this poem. That is a moment in time and space that is so separate from this idea of just scrolling through, looking at something, scrolling through. It requires a level of attention and presence. And then it evokes this level of intimacy that I think is really powerful.
I feel like it's a little unfair. I'm kind of poking at you here in an anthropological way. I'm like, tell me about your culture, young person. But Kennedy, what questions do you have for me? Because in a way, I'm here, yeah, like at a big vintage, let's call it, media organization. I have friends who came up in magazines, friends who came up in the blogging era. Like, what? Yeah, I'm asking all the questions, but how do you think about all this? What do you want to know?
Yeah, and I will say I'm 28, so I don't feel like so young.
No, no, that's so young. I'll just stop you right there. Just
I'll
no,
take it. Thank
no.
you.
But my judge is like, where were you? Like, how old were you? Like your freshman year of high school? What year
Oh, it
was it?
was 2014.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You're a child. You're
Heck, I'll, as long as I can take it, I
take
will.
it. Take it as long as you can. Keep moisturizing. That's all I'm gonna say. Um,
Yes, yes. Um, I think one thing that is coming to mind for me is like the presence of these different Black publications, right? Essence, Ebony, Jet Magazine. Like these are things that I would see growing up in my house, or I would kind of like peek through. I'd see Jet Beauty of the Week, like, oh, who's she? Like,
yes.
with
Yeah.
like these like images of Black people and Black beauty. And these are images that I don't see so much anymore, especially not in print. So I would love to hear about, and these magazines are still in existence. So maybe
Yeah.
what that experience was like, kind of living through the height of this
Yeah.
and where it is now. And
It is. That's a good point. That's a very good point. First of all, it's funny you bring up like Jet. Like those things were the size of zines, right? Like they weren't even. They were these little booklets that you'd flip through. And then later, Ebony and Essence took over in that realm of kind of constantly showcasing Black excellence. That was sort of the undergirding of all of that. And now that I think about it, two things happen. One, over time, and you are familiar with this, there was a sense of being anti-respectability politics, right? Respectability politics, according to your generation, is there's no amount of good dressing, good looks, class you can deploy that will protect you against instances of racial discrimination or harm. Okay. So right away, that's different, right? Like, so is that same person going to pick up a zine or a magazine that's like top 5 best dressed lawyers in Atlanta? You know what I mean? Like, which was the bread and butter of that stuff. And then the other thing, I think journalists like me, and I take full responsibility of this, I feel like there was a 90s era of Black journalists who really made their way in the business. They're big names, and they were kind of the Black journalist in the newsroom. And then there was a generation like me that followed that was like, well, I don't want to be pigeonholed, And there were moments where I really sort of fought against focusing on just the Black community because I wanted to have the biggest possible reach. And I thought, oh, I can, if I'm integrated into this world, I'll be able to bring these ideas and people like you right now into this story. There's a version of this interview that is with a white punk rock guy from Baltimore. You know what I mean? Like just with a different interview where that would have happened. But to your point, you're raising a good question I'm going to think about now is like what was lost in that decision making. And the revival of kind of Black media or Latino media is this sort of effort to refocus and create so-called safe spaces is reminding me that something was lost in that line of decision making.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Did any of that make sense?
No, that made perfect sense. And I think, yeah, I mean, I have these conversations in my own life and my career around what does it mean to work outside of systems versus within them, or when you're
Yes,
working.
it's that.
Yes, yes. So I think we all are contending with that in one way or another. And of course it comes up in media and in the way that we relate to each other.
It's fun. I'm glad it's so interesting that you asked that. What about the line of questioning made you ask that?
Well, I will say that what I've been really enjoying about certain Black zine experiences I've been in, one of these is at the Black Zine Fair in New York, which is run by Sojourners for Justice Press. Amazing work, amazing organization. But one of the zine workshops there, people brought ebony magazines and and being able to just really engage with those magazines and make zines out of those, reinterpreting, re-engaging, restorying, or like creating new narratives from what
Yeah.
was there was a really beautiful experience and also a way to engage with history, right? Recent history, but not something that we're always looking through and not something that we really have a good version of today in a,
Yeah, or in
national.
fact that we're still arguing about today. So much of recent Black political history, let's just say, or Brown political history, if you think of other communities, we're still fighting over it.
Yes, yes. And I think there's a lot to be said around voice, around what is the truth, around even we are, as the collective, we're very committed to creating spaces for Black zine makers. But we also know that we are not a monolith. So there are many voices even within that we're not necessarily in alignment with, right? So there's this dance of how do we create a space that we really want everyone to feel like their voice can be heard and shared, while knowing that not every Black person has a zine that I will deeply resonate with me because we're Black. That's simply
Yeah, and
true.
depending on where you
Like,
are in the country, the politics are going to feel very different in that zine.
absolutely.
It's
Politics,
always yeah.
priorities. Yeah.
So we've talked so much about kind of why your generation might be interested. We've talked about why you're interested as an artist. What's your advice or takeaway you want people to have who are going to pick one up or who wouldn't have typically, right? Because I'm seeing them very suddenly. Like there was a newish bookstore that opened in my town, and there it was, a wall of zines, and I was like, "What?" And you open them up, and sometimes it's words, sometimes it's pictures, and the thing you say in your mind as a normie is, what is this? What is this? And who is this for? So give me some takeaways.
Yes. I would say that zines are by everyone and for everyone. So if you are someone who is seeking any form of connection, community, information from a source that you might not find or that might be different from the mass media that you are tired of potentially, you might be interested in picking up a zine. Now, there are many zines that don't speak to me. That's why I also talk so much about Black zine making, because I want people to know, like, just because a certain subsection of zines have never called to you before, there is a section that does based on your interests, based on, maybe it's music, maybe it's your, creative hobbies, maybe it's your politics or your art, whatever it is, there are zines about it. And they're made by people who have experiences that you might resonate with or that you might learn from. So I think if you are interested in having this moment of connection and this moment of intimacy, of really understanding the thoughts and experiences and feelings one individual to another, I think that you should pick up a zine and see what's inside.
I think my takeaway is that if I pick up a zine now, I'll know that I'm looking at something that is a window into a person's mind and expression untouched by the algorithm. Like now that is really striking me because our entire existence now is shaped by this thing we create online. And that's shaped by algorithms. And all of a sudden, you have this little book that's an expression of you that isn't put through that grinder.
Absolutely. And it goes both
Do
ways
you see like an
too.
actual light bulb over my head now that I'm saying this?
Yes.
It's not like I don't understand self-expression, but I just don't understand like why wouldn't you blog? Why wouldn't you, there's so many other ways to do it. But there's something about what you're saying of like, no, 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 you're guaranteed if someone hands this to you that it is untouched by that entire thing.
Yes, it is pure and it is relational. And I think a lot of the information that we receive from many other sources, it can be a dump and it can be, just you're kind of there, it washes over you all.
Yeah, a feed,
Yes, yes,
right?
these
Yeah.
algorithms, it's like, but I think zines can disrupt all of that and take you out of whatever this space is that many of us don't even want to be in, that we actually use so that we can be connected, and it's not serving us, and yet it's the only thing that we have. So zines are another thing, another tool that we can use to connect, one with ourselves, right? Reflection, introspection, that can be done through zine making. And two, connecting with one another and creating a sense of community, whether it's through I read the zine and it's done and I felt this connection with
Yeah.
someone, or whether it's I've read this and I moved to action, or this is a really interesting group and I want to do more in my community around this, or whatever that call to action may be.
Without the pressure of likes, followings, uh, of performance, of public performance. Like, do you even know how to do this stuff without likes? Like, what happened to you? Did you put out a zine and like look around like, like someone upvote me? What's happening?
And I'll say that I think is where something really special about zine making happens when you're sharing it with someone, when you put it in someone else's hand. Like there's this level of appreciation and care and gratitude. I think a level of respect and care that comes into sharing and trading zines too. And that can be a really special space.